You've probably been there, right? You're deep into a chat with an AI, you've given it all this context, all these instructions, and then it just forgets, or it starts making things up completely out of left field. It's super frustrating, and today we're going to dig into exactly why that happens, and way more importantly, how you can actually fix it. So here's the plan. We'll start by diagnosing the core problem. Then we're going to completely rethink what AI memory even is. From there, we'll get into smart ways to manage it, how to go beyond just one AI, and then look at the tools you need. Finally, we'll wrap it all up into a whole new way of thinking about how to build these things. All right, let's dive right in. To really get to the heart of this, we first need to tear down a really common and really wrong idea about AI. So many of us, myself included for a while, thought that the bigger the context window, the smarter the AI gets. Just cram more info in there. But it turns out the reality is the exact opposite. Because of how these models work, the more you add, the easier it is for the important stuff to get lost in the noise. A bigger context window is actually a more fragile one. And this whole problem, it has a name: context decay. This is the big bad guy of our story today. It's the reason that these incredibly powerful AIs can suddenly seem forgetful or just plain confused right when you need them the most. And look, this isn't just a little bug. It's the critical wall that's stopping us from building truly dependable, complex AI systems. This quote just nails the shift in thinking we need to have. For the longest time, everyone's been obsessed with prompt engineering, finding those perfect magic words. But that's just teaching the AI how to talk. The real pros, they're focused on context engineering. They're building the AI an entire office, with a desk, filing cabinets, a system for everything. It's about moving from short-term tactics to long-term strategy. So, if we're going to build this office for our AI, we have to understand that its memory isn't just one giant hard drive. No, it's way more interesting than that. It's actually a lot like our own brains. A really well-built agent needs different kinds of memory for different things. It needs a working memory for what it's doing right this second. It needs episodic memory to remember past conversations. It needs semantic memory for facts about the world. And it needs procedural memory for skills it can use again and again. Each one plays a totally different role. Okay, time for a quick pop quiz. What's the #1 pitfall people fall into when building agents? Is it A, bad prompts, B, using tools inefficiently, or C, confusing a knowledge base with a memory? The answer is C, and it's not even close. So many developers think that just plugging in a huge database of facts is the same as giving an AI a memory. It's absolutely not. And that mistake is one of the main reasons context decay happens in the first place. So what actually happens when you make that mistake? When you treat a giant data dump like it's a real memory system? Well, you're pretty much setting yourself up for failure. It's exactly like having 100 tabs open on your computer. Everything slows to a crawl, you can't find what you're looking for, and eventually, the whole thing just crashes. That's what the AI is going through. It gets completely distracted, and even worse, its thinking can get poisoned by irrelevant or conflicting information that's floating around in its context. This is really where the best engineers shine. They don't just throw data at the model. They actively manage the context. They use these 4 killer moves: compressing information before the window gets full, teaching the AI to take its own notes and summarize, loading data just in time, only when it's needed, and finally, stratifying all that context into clean, separate layers. But here's the thing. Even if you perfectly manage the memory for a single AI, you are eventually going to hit a ceiling. And when you do, it's time to stop thinking about a single worker and start thinking like a director of a whole team. This is what we call the one-person band problem. You can't ask one agent to do everything. You can't expect it to be the architect and the programmer and the QA tester and the project manager. It's just too much. It's going to break. For anything truly complex, you need a multi-agent system, a team of specialized AIs that work together. And that leads us to this AI maturity model. It's a great way to think about where you are on your journey. Most people start and get stuck at level 1, just obsessing over the perfect prompt. The next level is when you start mastering how information flows between your tools and your memory. But the real goal is level 3, where you're designing whole systems of agents, each with its own specific goals. Okay, another pop quiz, but this one's high stakes. Imagine your system is live. It's in production with real users, and it's about to crash from context overload. What's the pro move here? A, B, or C? The answer, The enterprise-grade answer is C, compaction. Think about it. Clearing the context means your AI completely loses its train of thought. That's a terrible user experience. Trying to just make the window bigger and bigger, well, we already know that's super expensive and just makes context decay worse. Compaction is the smart, surgical solution. All right, now we are getting into the really high-level thinking of a true AI architect. This is where we stop just worrying about the AI's brain and start designing the entire office it works in. You can't just use one tool for everything, especially not databases. A top-tier architect knows you use the right tool for the job. User profiles? That goes in a classic relational database. The current session state? A super fast key value store. Complex relationships between things? That's perfect for a graph database. And then, for knowledge retrieval, that's where your vector database comes in. It's about precision. So now you've got all these moving parts, different agents, different tools, different databases. How on earth do you figure out the best way to put them all together? Well, it comes down to a classic trade-off: exploration versus exploitation. Exploration is trying something new, like a restaurant you've never been to. Exploitation is sticking with what works, like ordering your favorite dish at your favorite place. And with a system this complicated, just going with your gut feeling is a recipe for disaster. The number of possible combinations is practically infinite. That's why you have to approach it like a scientist. We use powerful optimization algorithms, things like Bayesian optimization, which is basically a smart way to make educated guesses, to find the absolute best system architecture with the fewest number of tests. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. Let's zoom out and bring this all home. Let's really define this new paradigm, this new way of thinking that separates the amateurs from the true professionals. These 5 ideas right here, these are the absolute cornerstones of building modern AI systems. I'm serious, you should take a screenshot of this slide. Deeply understanding context decay, using just-in-time context, building tiered memory systems, designing with multiple agents, and evaluating the whole system, not just the prompts. This is the playbook. And if there is one single thing to take away from all this, it's this quote right here. A good prompt gets you in the door. It sets the baseline, the floor for your AI's performance. But it's the context architecture, the system, the office you build, that determines how high it can go. It determines the ceiling. So I'll leave you with one last question to really chew on. Go back and look at your own code, your own projects. Are you actually building a system with a solid architectural foundation, or are you just writing longer and longer prompts, kind of crossing your fingers and hoping for the best? The answer to that question will pretty much define your future as an AI builder.